Thank you guys for joining us. I am really excited to be having this conversation. This program is something that is a bit of my baby. We had a vision of creating a competition around video games a little over 3 years ago, and the program seems to be working. People are excited about it, and I've been able to convince a bunch of people here to buy into it and help us grow the program. I'm going to, before I introduce my panelists here, I want to tell you a little bit about what the program is, and then share with you well, have you guys introduce yourselves and about what your roles are. So at a very high level, the Games for Change Student Challenge is a competition that we have as a city-focused program that encourages youth to design video games around social social change, right? Social impact issues. And we help define those issues for them each year by bringing in theme partners to help focus their efforts. So it's a couple of layered, right, scaffolded experiences. They're learning, or they already know how to make a game. We want them to think about their responsibility and have civic engagement, and design a game about that issue in their design process. And each year we partner with different theme partners to help create those prompts. This past year, we worked with Common Sense Media to design a theme around news literacy. We also worked with the NOMA, which is a North American Association of Minority Architects, to design a theme around connected cities. We worked with the Born This Way Foundation around kindness and empathy, and with the National Wildlife Federation around wildlife conservation. But part of this program also is working with teachers and providing a professional development opportunity for teachers to bring game design into their classroom. And I'm pleased on the panel that we have both a teacher here and someone who works in a school, within a school district, to talk about what that opportunity means to those teachers. Because we want to engage with kids, but if they don't have the means if they don't know how to make a game and they haven't had any exposure to game design or coding, we want to help develop that opportunity. And it's through professional development that we can make that happen. So through funding, we are able to bring this game design program that's designed by Mouse, also on the panel, a wonderful curriculum about making serious games. We are able to reach 20 schools in each city. Most of them are Title I schools, and offer teachers in those schools the opportunity to learn, to run this game design course in their classrooms or in after-school programs. And then all those students at the end of the program are invited to make a game for the competition. But we also invite students all over the city, regardless of whether they're part of those 20 schools, to also be inspired to make a game. So we have game jams throughout the city. We partner with different organizations like Code.org or Girls Who Code to make sure we engage with their students, or with Urban Art Partnerships, which I think has been very active in New York City. And we have a big award ceremony and an arcade for kids to showcase their games, and offer wonderful prizes that are often supported by industry partners. Mentorship is a big part of the program too, and we'll talk about that as well. We're very excited that this past year, we were able to expand to 5 cities. We had funding partners from a variety of sources, which is really exciting, from the National Endowment of the Arts, to Take-Two Interactive, to city partners. And what we found is that this program seems to be attractive to particular cities that has a school district that wants to be focused on computer science, or they want to engage with more on the corporate relationships and the technology side. And so we were invited by Annenberg Foundation to bring the program to Los Angeles. We also were invited by General Motors to bring the programs to Atlanta and Detroit. And they also partnered with us to help develop a theme around connected cities, an issue that was important to their corporate social responsibility. So I'm really happy to bring in front of you today some of our partners to help make this program happen in those cities. You know, if you know anything about Games for Change, we are a small organization. Forget what you see here. Like, there are like 6 of us, you know, in a WeWork. I'm not kidding you. And we leverage partnerships and working with people to make things happen and to scale. And so if it isn't without these people, that we wouldn't be able to do this program.
Annenberg Learner and Annenberg Tech partnered to bring Games for Change to Los Angeles this year because it was a unique opportunity to engage students in 21st century skill building and also to connect them with mentors in the gaming industry.
So the 2018 Student Challenge is a game design contest in which children from middle school and high school age can submit games about social impact issues to our portal and win cool prizes and recognition.
You know, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. All of those things are increasingly important in the workforce.
In addition to learning the technical aspects of building games, students are developing their sense of agency by creating games to address real challenges in their communities. This year, students created games about wildlife conservation, kindness and empathy, and news literacy. We hope they take this idea of leveraging technology for good with them to their future careers in STEM and STEAM fields as well.
So Stacey, why don't you introduce yourself and your role in the program, and we can talk a little bit about your experience in LA.
Sure. So I'm Stacey Pierpoint, and I work for Annenberg Learner. We're actually the education arm of the Annenberg Foundation. And there was an opportunity here at the foundation for us to sponsor the Games for Change Challenge in Los Angeles because of the burgeoning tech community in LA. And Annenberg Foundation has another initiative called Annenberg Tech, which was mentioned in the video, and they're working on corporate social responsibility in LA and also helping with the student pipeline to careers in STEM, especially for underserved youth. So for us in education at Learner, and then for their efforts in tech, this was a great opportunity for us to partner with Games for Change and bring this opportunity to the students there.
So one of the things about the program that I recall at the beginning that was important to you was engaging the community. So the tech companies, the schools, can you explain a little bit about their roles and how they contributed?
Mm-hmm. So Dakota Ortiz, the lead for Annenberg Tech, has been talking to tech companies and finding out ways for them to be mentors for the students in the Games for Change Student Challenge. So we also had opportunities for them to offer field trips for students so they could see what, for example, a video game designer does for a day. So Riot Games partnered with this program this year and offered 5 field trips for the students in the program. And then we also were looking at schools of ed working in game design. So people who are already working towards STEM careers, showing students that path as well by having them mentor the students in the classroom.
We also worked with USC, right, as mentors?
Yes, there were some mentors from USC that did come to the program as well. Jen Stone, who was one of the teachers in our program,
we did have a mentor from USC. They have a great grad program in computer programming and game design. It's actually a hybrid program between their arts and theater department and their computer science department. And we had someone who was really fantastic, actually. So she came and offered a new perspective on game design during the second semester and mentored a couple of students in particular. And she also had, very interestingly, a background in anthropology as well. So she had done some really cool work on her own and it was a great role model.
So Jen, you are a teacher of what grades?
It's 9th through 12th, but most of my students are juniors and seniors.
Okay, so the program itself is offered to middle schools and high schools. So you brought the program into your high school, and you are a computer science, right, teacher?
Correct, yes. I started a computer science program at the STEM Academy of Hollywood 3 years ago. It's a STEM school that didn't have one computer science class. So I started from scratch and had an intro class, then started teaching the new AP class. It's the AP Computer Science Principles, which took the College Board 8 years to develop. And then this past year, I started computer programming and game design, and by chance found Stacey and the Annenberg Foundation just as I was launching my capstone course.
So maybe this is a good way to segue a little bit to the curriculum that you did bring into the classroom, which was designed by Mouse. Mark Lesser is the head of learning, something like that?
Close enough.
Okay, at Mouse. Maybe we can have a quick conversation about what the platform is and then what your experience was using it, because it is a big part. It's like kind of like the engine of the program. You.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I can start. We had Mouse participate in our meetings with Annenberg as a partner in LA. This was maybe in August, but very beginning of the school year. And they had developed a platform which had a pre-designed playlist that worked through game mechanics up until to Scratch, and it just kind of, they put it in order for a very, very beginner, which was really terrific. So you really didn't have to know anything.
As a teacher.
As a teacher, you really didn't. I teach game design as a unit in my intro class, and so I do have experience with Scratch, but you don't have to for this. They really, it's really well thought out, and it's really, I think, designed for a novice and somebody who hasn't had any exposure to game design.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we found, that we had a lot of different teachers coming from different subject areas participating. And we had certainly a number of computer science teachers, but English teachers, social studies teachers who's found ways to bring that into their classroom and wrap their own curriculum around it. Maybe Mark can tell a little bit more about Mouse, the organization, and what the Serious Game course is.
Yeah, sure. So Mouse is a 21-year-old organization this year. We were founded here in New York. Our roots are really in youth development, but we've been really focused in all of that time on equity in STEM in lots of different ways. But we work for young people, and to bring the talent of young people into the pathways that we are so interested in as a country and globally right now. We run programs, we build a web platform, we design a lot of curriculum, and do a fair amount of teacher training both in computer science as sort of a subject, but also in thinking about beyond STEM and beyond computer science. There is a moment, a chapter from now, that we believe really strongly is sort of beyond the acronyms, and really thinking about creative computing beyond how we've taught them so far. So serious game design is an area that we've been working on for years, and this is a curriculum that's taken a lot of cultivation and really started with efforts that were collaboration with other youth-serving organizations here in New York. Global Kids, Barry Joseph and Global Kids. Barry, who is a founder of Games for Change, had started a program that was very sort of offline. We took that offline programming and pulled it online and started to build a curriculum that now, in addition to the very beginner sort of scaffolding that we do into Scratch, we're also starting to build levels up into Unity and helping students who want to do a year 2 or year 3 even, we hope, with the challenge to get into Unity and start using some of the tools that professional designers are.
Jen, how did you find, what were your actions from the kids, from your students? Do you find that the opportunity to create games presents, does it added interest, is added value? I know you've used the expression, it's a no-brainer, right? Kalanda. Is there something about games and game design that's different than other opportunities to code, let's say?
Well, it absolutely is their world. And you will find students who may be hesitant in other areas of coding or other platforms dive right in. I think there are also a lot of points of entry to game design. So it doesn't have to be the programmer. It can be the storyteller. It can be the artist. It can be the animator. And there's just a great joy that comes to these students when they're collaborating and they realize that they have a piece that matters, and that they don't have to be all starting at the same place for these different skills. And every role is really important. So yes, it's a great way to teach programming, and I absolutely teach programming through game design. But like I said, there is going to be a student who comes at it from a totally different angle, and their group is going to learn so much from that student, whatever it may be.
This is a good chance to introduce Kalanda McDonald, who is from the Detroit public school system. And we're thrilled to have started a relationship with the school district, which I think is key to attracting teachers to participate, right, to get that support. And it's not always easy to develop a relationship with the school district. They've got a lot on their minds. They're very busy. But Kalanda, why don't you describe a little bit about your role is and how, we started getting to know each other, because you came to literally every single event that we produce in Detroit.
Thank you, Susanna. Good afternoon, everyone, after lunch. Thanks for being here today, and thank you, Susanna, for this opportunity, as well as Games for Change. So my name is Kalanda McDonald. I'm with Detroit Public Schools Community District, 15 years as a middle school science teacher. Recently, this past year, I took a role with an organization called LIFT, Lightweight Innovations for Tomorrow, and it's a manufacturing institute, and their whole mission and goal is in the next several years, we won't have anyone to hire. So students need to be exposed to different STEM opportunities. So this year, it aligned with our district's strategic blueprint plan 2020 to expose kids' whole child commitment to STEM opportunities to educate every child in every community. So as this year, I started as a STEM coordinator to actually expose children, and I'd always like to say teachers, and the whole comment about it being a no-brainer is why wouldn't we expose students to authentic opportunities with learning? I'm not even sure, Susanna, how I interjected an email in a large district where we have a wonderful superintendent, Dr. Vidi, getting caught in the middle of a transition. We have been run by emergency financial managers, but there are lots of emails. I previously worked on the science side, so sometimes I interjected emails just to bounce them back over. So some kind of way,
It was actually through code.org.
Okay, perhaps through code.org, I interjected an email. I read the email. I'm saying, man, this is great. Wow, where was Susanna when I was in the classroom? And so I kind of read an email, wanted to check it out. We were doing professional development for teachers on January, top of the year, January 2018, and wanted to come and learn more about it because ideally I'm about supporting kids and teachers. And so from that moment, I think I did a pop-in between meetings and heard a little bit about our wonderful presenters were there and heard a little bit about what we were trying to do and what the goal and mission was, and I kind of jumped on it, like why wouldn't we expose kids? And the rest has been history, so now we're trying to formalize. I actually sit in the Office of Partnerships and Development to figure out how it works, and students and teachers were involved this year, and just from the first year, we received excellent feedback. As a matter of fact, our students said, not enough time, we want more, and teachers are actually begging for more.
Yeah, this year in Detroit, we ran the program January through May, but typically we want to start the program in September. So teachers would have training in late August, early September. They'd bring the program to the classroom by October, and kids are up and running making games by the end of the year. And then they continue through to May when we close the program. So that's what we're going to do this next year. But the award ceremony in Detroit was very, very special. You really can see kids coming together, and I've heard stories, we heard stories about how this experience and winning something, making something and being acknowledged for what you're making and having that acknowledged, it can be such a moving experience. Stacey, you want to tell about that one story about that team?
Oh, yes, the winning team in LA, it was the only submission from that school. It was a teacher in our cohort, and I had emailed him to tell him that his two students who had worked on the game were finalists, and he was very, I don't know if I can get them to go there and to the award ceremony, and I really had to work with them to motivate them just with their confidence. They were motivated to make the game, but they didn't for a second think that their game would come close to winning. So not only I got to tell him they were finalists, and the kids were really over the moon about it. He said, well, we'll be there. But I knew after a short period of time that they were also the grand prize winners. And so when we presented it, I was watching his face. We presented them as winners for the category, and he teared up, the teacher in the crowd, and the kids were super excited. So then when we announced them as the grand prize winners, and they got up again, I think he cried a little bit at that point. Again, he talked about the motivation and just that they didn't think that, given the school that they were in a really underserved district, and the lack of confidence that they had in themselves, it was a really great experience for those kids.
And thanks to Take-Two Interactive, which is a big sponsor of ours, all the winners of the grand prize on the teams each won a $1,000 scholarship, which meant so much, so much to them. We gave them a big check, and it was that like sweepstakes, moment. I'd like to turn and introduce to Laura. So Laura is from Atlanta in the house at Georgia Tech. And another component of the program that makes it so, I think, work is that we have anchor partners in each city. And we want to partner with an organization that has roots in the city that can help us with developing relationships. And we found a fantastic partner in Georgia Tech for several reasons. And maybe, Laura, you can talk about how this program kind of worked across campus.
Yeah, sure. So, hey, y'all. My name's Laura. I'm a research scientist at Georgia Tech. I'm in a research and development lab that is industry facing. So we have a really diverse group of people, and just about everybody had a hand in mentoring a lot of these students for the 3 game jams that we did over the course of the spring. When our sister group, the Georgia Tech Research Institute, started planning this, the meeting size just kept growing, which usually in a project you don't want. But for this, it was great because we have we have a fashion designer, we have graphic artists, developers, programmers, computer scientists, computer engineers, to get to your point, to show these kids when we go there that you don't have to just code. You have value in a lot of other different ways for managing a project like this. Georgia Tech is an urban campus. We are right in the heart of Midtown. It's a really beautiful campus, and the venues that we hosted these game jams were very picturesque and fancy. I had never even been in the alumni hall until we did these game jams. So these kids got this aura of being in this institution that they had heard about, that they had family members. Though we had a lot of kids coming from pretty far away, rural areas. We had a busload of girls come in from North Carolina from a group called I Am Beautiful. So getting that experience of being in the city where you can see the skyline outside of these huge windows, and then having this interface with people in the field. So we make a lot of serious games. We work with industry, so they're very rapid. We have a lot of very flashy demos. And they got to work with scientists, engineers. Amy Lambeth is one of our artists, and she's incredibly talented, and I thought that was a really good having women. We had actually a lot of women working with the girls, and the teams here was really helpful for them we had so many kids that would say coding is scary, I don't think I can do it. And then we said you can do it, but also look at Amy, storyboard this. Do you want to storyboard your game? I'm a scientist. Did you know that you can study games? You can make games as experiments, and just open their eyes in that way. They were so excited.
It's great. You brought up something that I realize is challenges in each city. I mean, each of the cities that we ran in, I guess I have the top level view. I know the challenges were in Los Angeles. It's a sprawling city, right? Transportation and getting people from one area to the next is a challenge. Transportation is a challenge in Detroit too, right? And so there was some flexibility in the program, and I'd love to hear from each of you about what was the difference about, or what was more successful about running the program or running a game jam at a location like you said, where you bring them and they come, versus taking a game jam into a school, and what impact does it actually have on that school?
Sure. In terms of actually bringing that game jam into a school, I thought we had major success. Right around May, we had a game jam. We hosted a game jam at one of our Detroit schools, and I had the opportunity to actually present. And it's funny because I spoke with the teacher just yesterday, I believe, and just a direct quote so that I do not mess this up. She was overwhelmingly very, very grateful for this opportunity. So she says, my game jam at my school went really well. The students were very good at identifying problems in their communities and were able to creatively approach solutions with an open mind. The games took a minute to plan, but once they agreed on the format, it was awesome to watch. From our students that have learning disabilities to the highest achievers each child was able to share their input to make the games. So in my mind, this is priceless in terms of learning, in terms of teachers who are tasked with the awesome task of standards-based learning. But how, in fact, do you transfer the standards-based learning into authentic experiences for children? And this is hands-on. You can't make this up. Culture building is extremely important. So I think that this offers an opportunity to build a positive culture within urban schools and urban communities. So the morning of, just the excitement in the building, why are you here? What happened? What did we do? And I said, nothing, I'm just coming to support. And just the excitement in the building was absolutely contagious. So you may have even had schools or children who may have been labeled behavior problems or challenges, but we were all in one room. You have 100 kids all in one room, engaged and excited during the actual school day. So that was helpful as well.
I think it was the entire 8th grade?
It was the entire 8th grade, and we had it during the school day. When you think of, I can make tons of links in terms of statistical data, but when you think of chronic absenteeism and this whole idea that we're able to authentically support chronic absenteeism, students were there, they were engaged, zero behavior problems. Teachers are getting the standards in, they're in line with the new science standards, there's cross-curricular learning. Is absolutely priceless. Why wouldn't we offer those opportunities?
I think there are more opportunities to bring the game jams into those schools. Stacey, you had the same experience in LA. Or no, you did it on the weekend, right? So bringing a jam into a classroom is more effective in that type of environment, right?
Yeah, in LA in particular, we discovered this year, running it for the first time, that we definitely had a geography challenge for getting students to the game jams and just making them accessible, because they have to either be driven there or they're coming from so far away. Taking public transportation takes a really long time. We ran 2 of them on the weekend, and the first one was the most successful. We had a lot of signups for all 3 game jams, but it was just the actual number of students that showed up was lower than we had hoped. The last game jam we still did on a weekend, but we ran it at Mendez High School, and that principal, he told us, he was super excited to explore this idea of holding it during the school day, because he was 100% sure that, with the captive audience, the students would also be super engaged, because their teachers can really talk about the experience ahead of time, and they're there to participate.
So the programs that we use in the challenge, in the curriculum and of the game jams are free to students, right? So we're using Scratch, GameStar Mechanic, and Unity in some cases. I'm curious if anyone has a thought about competitions, right? Why do you think kids respond to this competition? Because we were overwhelmed with a number of participants and submissions in each of the cities. I mean, we grew we I won't say struggled to grow, but year 3 of the challenge, we received over 250 game submissions in New York, which is something like 600 participants, right? Because you have multiple kids on a team. What do you think that drove that in your cities?
Well, the competition is an incentive for them to refine their games in a very systematic way, and that's the iterative design process is such an important process and such an important part of programming, and in particular game design, so that they really became very good at analyzing, playtesting, implementing the changes, doing it again, very comfortable with this repetitive process that I think in other situations I've seen students become bored. But there's nothing boring about refining your work for a contest. They were really excited about it, and they just wanted their games to get better, and indeed they did. And that was really driven by the Games for Change competition, and I think that was really exciting.
I was judging a subset of the games for the competition, and I kept seeing the same names over and over again. I was like, man, how many games did some of these students submit? And then when you were talking to them at the awards ceremony, like, you submitted a lot of games. Like, yeah, because we thought if we submitted a lot of good games, our chances of winning any particular category were higher. And I think that impetus to code and to crank something out, and they were good games. It was quantity and quality, that competitiveness drove them to spend a lot of time on those, just so they had a lot of stuff to submit.
I think kids naturally like to win. You know, I like to win, healthy competition. And I think that this provided an opportunity for students to win and to showcase their problem solving. And in science, they call it developing models. So here I'm able to develop a model, revise a model, put it in a competition, and potentially win around a problem that I've successfully helped to create. And I think that whole idea of healthy competition being a motivator for students. And I think that it was this motivation that created, just this energy and synergy within kids to make it happen. I want to win. I'm going to secure this.
Let's talk a little bit about the themes. So we obviously at Games for Change, it's not enough for us just to get kids designing games, but we want them to connect that with their civic, responsibility. And we were so fortunate to find that Mouse had also been thinking that way. Like, why did you design curriculum around a serious games course and not just game design course?
That's such a good question, and I think I could go so many different ways with it. I think what's really important about I think a thing that comes up a lot is, so what are you after with this? Are we trying to basically job train into the games industry? And the answer for us at Mouse is no. The answer is for us that young people are naturally activists. They're not necessarily naturally game designers, but they're naturally activists, and they naturally want to the competition piece, participate in capstone sort of ways in the big competitions. And then they also want to get together in a jam and just participate and feel part of a culture. And if you look at, there's a great scholar and somebody thinking about some of these things in Chicago named Nicole Pinkard, who has a great analogy where she draws analogy between basketball, if you look at basketball in communities, and STEM in communities, and how basketball is supported versus STEM, right? If you look at the sheer number of basketball courts in the city of Chicago, in contrast to the number of after-school youth programs that are supporting things like STEM, the numbers are pretty staggering. And so I think what's important is that through the competition, we're building a culture. Games are a thing where we have parents who can participate in the language and culture of supporting young people in these interests. We have teachers who can support these interests and speak the language, even if it's at a basic level. But I don't think that young people would be participating in the way that they do without the issues. I really think that the issues are young people stepping up because they so naturally have a role and voice in contributing to the issues in the world that they see around them. And I think that it's just such a natural doorway to give them skills to get that voice out there in ways that other people can interact with.
Jen, I'd like to hear about how your students reacted to the themes, because you're offered, I think in LA we had 3 themes.
Right, the 3 themes in LA were wildlife conservation, kindness and empathy, and news and media literacy. So I think the themes are challenging. I think I agree that young people are natural activists, but when you're talking about the gaming world and what they've lived and what they've been exposed to for all of this time, it's largely not serious games, right? And so it's not their natural inclination to think about gaming or game design in this way. And I think this was the hardest piece, and I think it was the most interesting piece, and I think that's where my students really grew more than any technical piece of the program. And so I was really grateful for that, because it's just so rich. And it took them, I would say, the first quarter of the year, if not the first semester, to really connect with the themes. And we just had to keep going back to it, and they had to find a way to connect to all of the themes or even one of the themes in a personal way. And when they found that connection, when they found why it mattered to them, then it all opened up. But it wasn't automatic, and it's because that's not the world in which they live.
Yeah, so with Atlanta had connected cities, which makes a lot of sense. We're a tech hub. We've got a lot of smart tech that's being built into the city, but we had a lot of students that came from far away outside of Atlanta, which can be very rural. So the connected cities theme was tough. But to go back to the other question about what it means to the challenges of getting students to these venues, that inadvertently really helped us because the kids would sit down and they'd be like, man, I live on a farm. My nearest neighbor's 10 miles away. I don't know what it means to be a city, let alone a connected one. And you start to probe them. Well, what was it like getting here? Oh, it took 2 hours. The traffic was terrible. The traffic was especially bad on Peachtree Street because of the lights. And that got them thinking about the kinds of games that we could make, which a lot of them were about traffic because of those challenges of moving around. But then also because they had to come from so far away, the parents took them, and the parents had nowhere to go, so they stayed there. And I caught one of the dads actually making his own game with our paper prototyping materials. But it prompted these conversations too with the parents and the kids of what does it mean to have a diverse neighborhood or an accessible neighborhood or the future of technology and wearables and sensors in our cities informing us what's going on here. These kids got this much bigger scope, I think, of the theme than we ever expected.
Well, the themes, I mean, we think about what kind of themes are going to be relatable to kids. And we've talked about that in the past, about, well, we're trying to adjust each theme so that it is connected to them in their particular community, right? We do have these national themes that we do. In Atlanta and Detroit, we did focus on a single theme, but you still had to make that theme relevant to them in that city, right? So in Detroit, it's different issues about being connected. I think a lot still has to do with transportation.
And the educator has to make the connection with the students, but it's an opportunity when you look at education, and I think it was at the game jam at the school with the whole idea of the connected cities. Students were initially maybe defensive. It maybe took a little bit of probing and clarifying questions and kind of finding out what do you like, or if you had a favorite concert, what are some barriers to inhibit you from getting there? So for us, it was the opportunity as the educators or mentors, because Namdi was there, and Noma. Namdi, I just made up a name, I'm sorry. Noma was there, and it was about us walking around to kind of break the ice, because initially kids were kind of defensive, or maybe they didn't know, you don't know what you don't know. And so asking the right questions to build those connections and rapport with kids. And then once you're able to do that, it opens up just this idea and power of innovation within kids and their thinking, because now you've provided an environment where they're fearless in their thoughts. And this the whole idea of education and creating innovators. So that was kind of one of the things that stuck with me. I like the whole idea of the connected cities, because you can look in Detroit. What is this like? You have the power to change. You have the power to impact. But how do you get kids to realize that? How do you bring that out of them? And I think it was even about the connections and the rapport that mentors were able to do.
One of the things that we assess in this program is 21st century skill learning. And we worked with the Institute of Play, and they designed a rubric for us to do some evaluations before the program, during the program, and after the program. And I think, Stacy, you've gone through some of that in the pre and the during. I know we've assessed this in the years past, but it's really interesting to think about the non-CS skills, right? The kids are developing, the collaboration skills, critical thinking. Is there anything that you can speak to that about what feedback you were getting from teachers along the way? And Jen, feel free to jump in too.
I might kick that one to Jen. I know that when I looked at the evaluations, I think agency, there was one on agency, and if I remember correctly, that one the students scored a little bit lower on, and I think it's because they were less familiar with it. The collaboration, they seemed, which is a testament to what our teachers are doing in the classroom today, seemed to score higher on. But Jen, I don't know if you have more of a sense of.
Definitely collaboration, self-directed learning. Those were really key. And I would say, just to bring it back to, we talked about how the game jams were challenging in LA because of distances and location. I ended up doing a game showcase at the end of the year with my students. And because of the partnership with USC, I had the opportunity to go to their showcase, which was hosted at the School of Cinematic Arts at USC, and it was fabulous, of course. And I brought some students with me, so we came back and said, okay, we're doing this in lieu of our final exam. And so the collaboration that was happening in small groups for the competition became a classroom-wide collaboration for the showcase, and they were amazing. It was totally professional. It was, wonderfully designed. I have a very small space, and everyone contributed to make it work. Every last student, even the one you were just not quite sure what was going to happen with them at the end of the year, they all came together, and I think they really stepped it up. I mean, it was amazing, and those are not technical skills. Those are really group and collaborative and agency skills.
Oh, and employers are looking for those soft skills, so it's a win-win to have that as part of the competition, the whole program as well. So not just the CS skills, but those soft skills.
Well, I think I want to make sure we stay on time because I'm sort of responsible for that. What's that? We have 2 minutes in? Okay, we've got, I don't know, we have 2 or 3 minutes. So last 3 minutes, does anyone have any last remarks they want to say about where they'd like to see the program go? If anyone out there was interested in participating in the program, I can certainly talk to that outside of the cities that are represented here, but any final words?
Well, in Los Angeles, we're looking forward to running the program again next year. We're hoping to solve these geography boundary challenges that we had this year, and really looking at ways to scale the program and really help students enter the STEM and STEAM fields that are being created there.
So we at Mouse, we do a lot of work to make sure that work that's happening, whether it's in schools or informally, is that young people can package that work and actually use it to do things like apply to college. And I think one of the things that's really important to us, in case there are any like-minded folks in the room who care about it and want to talk more, is that we have partners who step up, who want to endorse these experiences and the credentials and the portfolios that come out of these experiences and submissions, and help young people use it to move forward and find great programs like the ones that are happening at USC and here in New York. And we just partnered with an amazing, in the CUNY system, there's a community college in the South Bronx that has an amazing 2-year program in design and gaming. And these are all the types of schools that need to be involved so that we can make sure that it's not a one-time project or science fair experience where you have it and it's nice and you move on. We want it to be something that supports young people on a trajectory that goes much farther.
Yeah, I agree that the portfolio building piece could be worked into this very nicely, and it is such a key to entering into any of these fields, or of course any higher learning. I also want to mention that I'd like to see this expand to more rural areas, especially because it's an opportunity to expose the gap in access to technologies. I know, we all had access to the right kind of computers. I even had hardware that was powerful enough to run the Unity platform, which allowed a whole different area of learning for my students. But those are where we see some of the greatest gaps in terms of the digital divide. And when we're looking to include geographies that might have more challenges in those areas, then it forces us to think about solutions for them.
For next year, girls. We had so many girls at these game jams. We had hundreds and hundreds of students, and the ratio looked pretty even for girls. But then they weren't there for the awards. I don't know where the breakdown happened. So next year, we're really focused, because we have so many interesting and influential women in our labs. helping run this, we want to look to making sure that we can pair people up and have this encouragement and mentorship, because it's a humbling experience to see an 8-year-old girl flip open her laptop and start making her game in Unity just right there. But I'm not sure why they didn't get into the awards part of it. So that's my primary focus for when we do this next year in Atlanta.
I'd just like to close and just say thank you to Games for Change and General Motors and NOMA, who afforded 19 to 20 Detroit teachers, educators, myself, to help students, because I think that the impact is absolutely priceless, and we might not ever see in terms of data and statistics the impact that we'll have. So I'd just like to say thank you.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure and
And
our
looking
honor.
forward to expanding the partnership.
Yes.
Susanna, if people want to learn more about the challenge and sort of stay in touch to hear about the challenge as it comes around next year, where should they go?
Yeah, so we have information on the student challenge on our Games for Change website. We have a whole section dedicated to that. I'm pretty sure we have something called Partnerships at Games or Student Challenge, a link there. If you are interested in bringing this to your city or to a school district, we are very interested in expanding the program and helping connect with funders or partners to make that happen. So you can reach out to me directly or through that link. Mouse is also a partner in each of the cities, so that's another way to go. But really, thank you for joining us, and I really hope that you're inspired today in thinking about these opportunities for students where you're from. Thank you.